the other direction. Hurry went under fire, tossed it back, used the ultimate, but he's blocked by the pillar, and a Kraken from Nika will send him to ult.
And also the stun on the one, some decent setup there.
You can already see a bit of her passive back there. Wondering what all those little green spikes are. Well, that's her passive kicking through, and it's what you were just talking about. So it's more HP missing equals more damage coming from there. Struggling at least a little bit in the early clear, or the double mages, for the Jade Dragons. And I think probably the next point to kind of talk about, and one we'll maybe get to see over the course of this weekend, is just how more or less we see mages in the solo. A lot of their itemization got a bit of a hit, but maybe along with that, we saw a lot of warriors get some extra help their way.
Yeah, warrior and warrior items. We have Corrupted Bluestone, the red version of the Bluestone, getting the buff in the late game. And so that's something that maybe we see Haddix actually opt for. Also, Chalk got a buff, so there's something there. And as you said, there's more than that. Axe buffs. We had some Kakolin buffs. There's been a bunch of buffs to that solo lane, so curious also with where the mage is going to be played. Are they still going to be played in solo? Already we have this Poseidon, and we shouldn't expect much from solo lane. This is a farm it out solo lane style, maybe blue buff invades, but for the most part, this dual lane should be our focus.
I think right to do so. We have PBM back on a pick that he's really been kind of comfortable going back towards. Has been this Sylvanas, played it a few times over the course of this phase. Coast on his most comfortable god right now. The on hurt typically gets banned away from him, but now that he picked up in couple alongside PBM Sylvanas just means it's going to be a very powerful early duo, and you can see that reflected already as Highland Ravens have just been pushed on this tier 1 time and time again.
Yeah, sitting on this tower line, and this is kind of what happens when you have this Tiamat in mid. You just don't have that same fight potential, so it's just, you kind of got to give up the pressure, and with that pressure, actually Scream looking to come left.
Scream on the way, Hurry went a bit low. A quick jump from Coast gets him just enough distance to be able to break out from this time. Startez actually keeping Benenu back. And we see a little bit of what Bibble talk about on the desk as far as her Mamon's wave clear goes. Walk up, channel that one, cancel, channel, cancel. Just keep that on repeat.
And the interesting thing with her one is every time you cancel it and use it again, it uses that mana bar up. So when we get to this level 5, level 6, this is why you're going for that Book of Thoth, because you run out of mana so quickly.
Run if you can.
Yeah. Let's see kind of how her build path goes as well. I mean, traditionally, at least in a lot of games I've been playing and watching, she's just been jungle. So your jungle build tends to be a little bit different compared to what you go with the mid lane. So starting with this Book of Thoth and maybe building into a little more of that traditional style of play. Zapman a bit danger. Good pillar from Coast. Dash away. Zapman used the beads, pin late. Now it's Hurrywin to body block and make sure that his Hunter can get out. The aggressive play and nature of the Dragons is allowing them to go for an invade on purple. You see Lasbra looping around the bottom side of the map, going for a bit of a speed invade himself. Purple does get stolen by the Jade Dragon, so more XP denied over to Zapman.
And Lasbra confirming both speed buffs. Scream not able to catch him out. Scream has no ultimate here, and Alma with no ultimate. Not a ton of CC. Lasbra's going to get both of those and get out. And now he has both his green buff, these mids, and both of his speed buffs to get. Along with the back camps, we're going to have a big lead in the jungle. And it's not because Laz is going to be ahead, it's because Scream's going to be behind.
This has just been the Lasbra special, man. I can't remember which week it was this phase that he started doing this. I want to say it was like week 2, week 3, goes to this weird, speed buff invade. We're like, oh, that's cool, speed buff. Then he goes to the other one, we're like, all right, that was cool and quirky. He'll probably never do it again. No, it's every single week that we watch a Dragon set. It's just a question of, is Lasbra going to be there, yes or no? More often than not, it's been yes.
And it started with that rat, because you always have that safety of just ulting out, but now it doesn't even matter, and as just highlighted by the camera, that left speed has one mini left there, so it's not going to be responding, and actually a pull on the Zapman gets ultimate ult out.
Able to jump away, but Coast jumps in, and one impale will put Zapman down. The horse does not get him far enough, and the Jade Dragons put themselves on the board with first blood.
And it comes from that purple pressure. They actually get that purple buff, they get the beads on Zapman earlier, and Sylvanas maybe doesn't have that same strength that he used to have, but he still has beads punish everywhere. The 1, the 3, the ultimate. A lot of threat there. Zapman just dropping that speed buff. Now it'll finally start to respawn, and Scream will now have another speed buff to do, but it is almost a minute and a half later.
I think the important thing now, and one of the faults that we did end up seeing I believe it was in their matchup against the Styx Ferryman, was the Jade Dragons got a really good lead over in duo. They get their first blood. It's all about what are you going to do with that first blood. They didn't get a whole lot then, so I want to see that translated a little bit further in this game specifically. But one thing that I saw picked up, and I wanted to bring attention to you, and that you simultaneously at the same time brought attention to me, was Stone Gaia for solo lane Haddix. We've been seeing a lot of Gauntlet of Thieves. I mean, Stone Gaia did get a buff a couple patches ago. Seems a little strange to maybe pick it up right away.
I mean, Gaia is just kind of like the perfect option in solo lane. It's not giving you any protections. That's not why it's bought, but the health you get from it, the sustain you get from it, it really provides just an unkillable solo laner. And while he may be able to be one-shot, Nika's not going like a one-shot build. This is poke, sustain, and that's exactly what Haddix is going to be able to match him with. And something that maybe is, like you're talking about, the buff to it. Maybe it isn't a big deal, but when you do get knocked up, you get a little bit of power with it.
Well, ultimates used by both of the junglers. Scream with the stun on Lasbra. Without beads, Lasbra going to lose out on some of that chase potential. This was a fight over these mid harpies. Lasbra now going to have the better end to try and clear those ones out and try and keep that lead up for the Dragons. Hasn't been too high just yet, about 1,500 gold in the lead for the Dragons, but I think the important part is starting to bleed into what you were talking about earlier. That XP lead that Lasbra has over Scream is starting to spill over, maybe across the rest of the map. Lasbra's still trying to get aggressive, even without an ultimate. Just him and Mike here by themselves. That might need some backup. It's going to be a 3 versus 2. Lasbra silenced out. Big damage coming from Venenu, but no from Mike to try and bail out. Hurrywin is now going to try and lock down Mike.
Mike's dead.
The 4-man surrounding the Ravens. PBM trying to break out here, but now it's Dardas to help out. Gets a big ultimate to help out, but there's just too much damage and too many people. Dardas gets one. A Kraken from Nika helps out, but Dardas is low. 200 HP. Haddix going to chase him down the slow too much. The Whirlpool there. The heal is just in time for Dardas to stay up. He's out of the team fight. It'll be a 2-for-1 trade at the end for the Ravens.
And Mike kind of got the team to take that fight on top of him. Fortunately, just not enough damage there, and a lot of damage by the Ravens. Venenu gets off just too much damage there. And we kind of saw the weakness of Mammon in these early game fights. Her damage is not there. She's not doing any damage.
Speaking of damage, though, it's all about Coast. Even still holding on to ultimate throughout all of that. Loses out in his beads against Zapman at EI Jutsu. Really slowing things down, but Zap walks back up to the wave with no mana. Coast is going to try to take him down. Zapman jukes out just about everything, and now Coast is one who has to turn and run because Scream is on the way.
The bait!
Ultimate will lock him down. Zapman pulls off the ultimate bait for the team and nets himself an extra kill. Now it's Zapman in danger, loses his beads, but it's only Mike and Laz against 3 this time. The Highland Ravens, they've turned it around and have gotten a kill for themselves.
And we kind of looked at each other a little funny when Zapman walks back up, but it doesn't matter. Zapman sees the teams rotating, and he gets the peel out. A pull just barely off the mark by Mike. Also uses ultimate there. Purple was spawning, so trying to get a little aggressive so they can actually go for the invade. Unfortunately, pull does not hit, ult does not hit, and the purple buff is invaded, or is not invaded, and the Ravens end up getting it. And all this time, Dart is starting to play a little aggressive on this Mammon. And I was curious with this mid lane, at what point is Dardas going to be really confident and comfortable walking forward? Because when you see these assassins in mid, there is a spike that they hit where they want to just take any 1v1, and that damage is insane.
Can we look and see what he's leveling? I believe it's Torrent that he's leveling on the Chalk at the very least. I believe it's that second ability that did get a recent buff. Yeah, crazy buff that came his way. I think, what is it, 340 at max rank now? Good lord, that is an insane amount of damage that we saw put on display.
And he's actually opting not even to level the 1. He's actually putting points into the 3 to get more healing, more attack speed reduction. So the 1 is basically just set up for his 2 and for his 3. Interesting leveling, but it should be a lot of damage from the Chalk and a lot of survivability.
Damage on to Dardas. Used the explosion just to try and fake Scream away. Quick dash out gets Dardas out of danger. The knockup misses from Venenu. Lasbra with some good peel to bail out his mid laner, but still seeing a bit of the weakness, at least in that early game of the Mammon. Can't take those 1v1s against the godlike Scream this early in. Now, we see Nika just slowed down by Haddix. Haddix returning some decent damage back, but as mentioned, unless he's using that Torrent, not really getting an insane amount of damage on Nika just yet.
And the little bit of damage he does do, Nika's just going to sustain up. But I just want to draw eyes to Lasbra's build quick. He has built 0 power since he finished his starter item. and he still has 0 power with the Toxic Blade build, but those auto attacks are going to be coming through fast. A lot of anti-heal, a lot of auto attack reduction. So more of a utility Erlang style so far, not a lot of damage. Curious to see kind of where he goes after this, because there's a world where he goes Xe, Kins, a lot of damage. There's also a world where he goes maybe like a Shogun's, he goes Berserker, something to just get a little bit more survivability. Because he has no power so far, so kind of what route is he going to go?
I think we'll be keeping eyes on that build. Also, interesting that for Scream, going for that Jotunsen first slot. Maybe we'll talk about that in a bit, because Laswell taking a whole lot of different Haddix, and Scream is a combo. Haddix walks up. He's got the no ultimate this time, but Scream does. Laswell used the ultimate, gets stunned out. Kraken only hits Haddix. Scream dashes in. That's enough damage from the double warrior. Maybe with the help of Venena, they can make it two. Nika under fire under the tower, and it's 2 more for the Highland Ravens.
And so far, I am just not impressed with this Erlang. Purple buff secured actually by Zapman and Hurrywind, but this Erlang so far, I'm not too impressed with. He actually had that early lead, and Mike trading out ult with Zapman, nothing else used, just Mike's ult, Zapman's ult. This Erlang had that big early lead, invaded the speed buffs, put Scream really far behind, but since then, 0-2-1, Scream on the other side, 2-1-3 a part of every kill. This is just kind of like the tale of the first 5 minutes versus since. It's really been just all Scream.
Maybe it's a product of the build that you were highlighting, not having any initial power, not really getting any defensive stats either. With a little bit of HP that comes from Toxic Blade, but outside of that, Lazarus not tanky. He's not really dealing damage. He's got great utility, as you mentioned, with anti-heal, but anti-heal at this stage of the game feels like it really only affects Haddix, if anybody.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to highlight, that anti-heal is going to be important later in the game to 1v1, you know, Zapman, 1v1 Haddix even at this point, but it's not that important right now. So curious to see the Toxic Blade so early, maybe something like an Xe in the second slot after that tier 2 Odibo, which is something we didn't even highlight, which is kind of a weird build in itself. Usually we see this Atalantas in the jungle, but we have the tier 2 Odibo. But even through this, even though they're behind in kills, the game's even, they're still allowed to play up with the Sylvanas in that grouping. This Mamana's in a solid spot. XP lead is about 1,000 in favor of the Dragons, even though they're down 5-2. So still pretty even game, even if kills are telling a different story.
Scream looking for an invade. Blue was able to get those back camps before Dardes rotates over. But all that lead the Dragons had, remember, it was about 1,500 after that first blood that was in favor of the Jade Dragons. And since then, as we saw in the charts a moment ago, only a couple hundred now between these two teams. The Ravens have done a great job of shoring that up. Now have that kill lead, 5-2 for themselves. So at least walking up to at least an even state of gold, XP slightly skewing their direction. Really, it's only that duo lane that's really falling behind on the side of the Ravens, specifically Zapman still 2 levels down to Coast. So maybe why we're seeing Coast still play as aggressive as he has been along with Mike.
Yeah, Coast up about a level, still playing for these purple buffs. Purple's about to spawn. You see Coast already walking back up. And this is what you got to do with on her. This is the point of the game that you're really strong. You have near one-shot potential at this point. Impale just off the mark, but he just actually jumps in.
Goes in, Zapman dashes out, hits him with the banner. But it's all a bait. Wolf Fury's been started up. Coast was posturing for purple, but now it might just be for a Fury instead. They know that Zapman's not going to want to step up, but Hurrywind is already here. Does have a couple abilities to try and steal this one out. A little bit late on the tidal wave. The Jade Dragons will get the Gold Fury and eat the ultimate from Hurrywind, no problem. The Jade Dragons try to fight back and regain their lead.
And that's the pressure from on her, able to play up on this purple buff in that 1v1. Doesn't actually full commit for the purple. Goes back to that Gold Fury, as you said. Gets about 1,000 gold lead for the Dragons, keeping them in a nice spot. Darda's taking a lot of damage in mid.
Does get hit by the knockup while his dash is down, but no further follow-up from the Ravens unless Scream can get there in time. The dash silence is good. Jumps into the ultimate. Dardas uses his, but that's not going to help him. Maybe Lasberg can turn the tide to fight against Scream. Turns back, hits with the shield.
He
Scream
does no
will
damage.
use both of his relics, but Lasberg just has no damage to fight back. This one, Nika shows up, and he's lost half of his health. The Highland Ravens are just controlling the entire map because it's now right to the Pyromancer. Scream nearly died during the fight, but
Mike has ult.
He'll be here just in time. Can Mike steal this one away? First ability too early from PBM, and the Ravens not only get their kill on Dardas, but they get an objective as well.
I mean, we see fights are just in favor of the Ravens. Macro play I think the Dragons have played pretty good macro, but a lot of these fights firmly in favor of the Ravens, and not to keep harping on it, but Lazarus really just not able to get much done in these fights. Not able to pull relics really, other than Scream, who dives a tier 1 tower to kill his mid laner. It's really just, at this point, 3-level lead in the jungle. One of them's been a part of every single kill. The other one, 0-2 and 1. Different jungle right now, or different in the jungle.
Yeah, we do see 3-level lead for Scream in the jungle at the moment. Lazbra only at that 12 for himself. Where Scream 3 full items deep in the build and working on his 4th. Opposite side goes over at Laz. Still sitting on the tier 2 Odibo. Just got that tier 2 bounce blade before that last little fight, so a little more damage, but that's only, what, 15, 20 kind of at that point when you compare the two of them there, so still really seeing a lot of that lead that the Ravens have built up through their jungler Scream.
And Scream getting a little bit of a lead in mid lane. Venenu actually caught back up, even though we had a little bit of lead. Coast jumps in and left. Zapman takes a little bit of damage. Ult. Not enough. Zapman ults out. Gets out. But got a nice little even in mid now. Level 16 and pause on that. Little fight in duo.
Ultimate from Haddix and Scream catches out Mike. Kindaway hits the Kraken from Nika. Doesn't get an insane amount of value, but now it's Dardes showing up to the fight. Benenu's in danger. The silence is there. Dardes, that's inside Benenu. Nearly goes down to the damage, and Lazaro will clean up the kill. It's Dardes on the run now, and maybe the rest of the Dragons, because it's Haddix. One man arming the rest of the team while Scream picks off Dardes. Haddix slows down PBM, buys some space for the rest of the team. Body blocks him against the wall. Nika there for the bailout, but now with Hurry Win here, the Ravens can just dive this tower and take down Mike. The root doesn't connect from the Hurry Win, but it does from Mike. He's just buying time, pull onto one, but tower is not safe.
He's still tanking.
That is 2-for-1 trade again for the Highland Ravens.
And we're seeing a big difference between the strength of the soul laners right now. Chalk, while maybe not doing a ton of damage, is able to tank it and just do a bunch of utility. And after that fight, Fire Giant pulled, but it is dropped because Coast, maybe he wasn't in that first fight, but he is level 17. It's fine to be a little worried about Coast and what he can do right now.
A lot of damage on her. Nika standing by as well. Has pretty much his full build going his direction as far as CDR is concerned. So that Kraken now on a short cooldown. Always got to have that worried threat. Jade Dragons still holding on to the gold lead at the very least. Lazar actually gets a pretty big influx of XP during that fight. Goes from a 3-level difference in the jungles to now only 1. But I think more important, now finally starting to see some damage come online for Laz.
Yeah, able to get that kin size. Now allows him to actually, you know, threaten Haddix, threaten Scream, threaten Hurry Win. Zapman actually looking for the all-in.
Goes aggressive, immunes out the ult from Dardes, but the stun is there. 1v1 goes the way of Dardes. And maybe that's just the nature of the 3-level lead that the mid laner has for the Jade Dragons over Zapman. Good attempt by the dual lane Hunter for the Ravens, but just not quite enough. Too big of a lead the other direction. Hurry Win under fire, tosses it back, use the ultimate, but he's blocked by the pillar, and a Kraken from Nika will send him to a watery grave. It's the Jade Dragons now with an extra 2 kills.
And that solo and left allows Nika to actually rotate over here, and then they get another pick. And with this pick, Pyro is spawning, but maybe this is a grouping for Fire. Actually, it's just Pyro, but Goldveer is up on left side. Seems like they just don't want to trade. They want to confirm both of these. And actually, Haddix TPing in behind.
Walks in, surrounded by 5. Knockup is there from Coast. Haddix, though, very speedy in his escape to try and break out of here. Makes it out of that fight. Still with a little over half of his health. We'll be able to sustain it back up. Pyromancer, the target for the Jade Dragons, confirmed by the team. And a little too low on health bars from the Ravens and a little bit outnumbered. Not going to continue out their chase. Aside from Scream, who will dash in and find Mike, but it would only be Mike that the Ravens could try and get a pick here. Mike gets to knock him onto 2, Roots onto 1, a full chase and a commit. Will take down the support, but when he loses in response, a massive Kraken from Nika puts Zapman at critical health. Goes up onto the horse, he's chasing out towards Stones. That's not the one you want to fight, and Dardes all by himself now. The Jade Dragons are able to pick off 1. Zapman, the first casualty of the Ravens in the fight, but it's a 1-for-1 at the end of it. Lazbra can find his way out. Quick blink and a dash gets him back to safety.
And the fight was just a little too split for the Ravens. They get that first kill on the Mike. Unfortunately, Zap gets picked off from behind, takes a lot of damage from this Maman. At this point, level 19 for the Maman Brigitte, and still not even hitting like critical mass. She is still going to be getting a lot stronger, only 3 items deep. And now we've seen 2 fights where she nearly one-shot Zap in both of them, and she's just going to get scarier from here.
Well, you're telling me she's going to start hitting even harder still? You're telling me that's not peak yet?
Even harder.
Man. I feel bad for Zap, man. He's just been getting the worst of those trades. Applaud him at least for the attempt earlier up against Dardes. Did use his ult to kind of immune that explosion of souls, but you're still taking all that damage, and we're starting to see just how much damage she's doing. Or maybe in response, how much damage Nika's starting to get. That Kraken in the last team fight hit 3 people.
Huge.
That might have been the saving grace for the Dragons.
Yeah, I think that's a good highlight there. If that Kraken hits even one less person, I don't think Dardes is able to get into the back line like that and actually get that kill, or at least threaten Zapman enough where he has to ult out. And quickly, as they're all grouped around this Fire Giant, looking at Mike's relics, the Bracer and the Frenzy, there's a lot of threat around this Fire Giant, especially with Kraken. Maman's damage on fire is good, but they also have Coast, they have Lasbras, they have Dardes, or they have Nikas, and then they have this Bracer, they have this Frenzy. And you look at the other side, no Bracer, no Frenzy, but they have Alma. So Burn is a little scary on both sides, but it definitely is in favor of the Dragons.
Dragons trying to find any pick they can get. Mike just a little short on the pull up against Hurrywin. As the Dragons are trying to go for this group around fire, maybe a pick on a Haddox to start things off. 2-man ult from Haddox bails him out for the time being. But that's another ultimate used. The wave is gone from Hurrywin, and Vapor's Coast is in danger. The Dragons are trying to collapse in this fight.
Showbolt.
As we now see Scream go down, Hurrywin trying to run through. The Dragons are winning this fight handedly on the right side, but Dardes is doing his best on the mid, loses out in the team fight that direction with a 2-for-1 trade again, this time for the Jade Dragons. Maybe they've got the confidence to pull fire.
Confidence indeed. 2 pushing middle, Haddox in this Fire Giant pit looking to defend. It's already happened.
Dragons have got to do something for this Fire Giant. Lasbra is falling low. Haddox not going to be able to steal the Fire Giant away. It's a good pin from Lasbra, and now collapsing by the Dragons. With how low Laz is, he's got to be careful, but they don't need to. When Coast and Nika are popping off in the fight, Coast gets 1, and it's only Venenu left alive in the middle of 4. Double kill for the solo lane Poseidon. The Jade Dragons now take not only the kill lead, but a pretty hefty swing in gold.
Pretty hefty indeed, and now they've got this Fire Giant. Gold Fear is going to be coming down soon. Pyro is going to be spawning also. And Mike, now level 17, when he backs, he's going to have his starter finished. And when you look at the siege potential of this Dragons comp, yes, they don't have a true mage in mid lane, but they have that mage over in solo lane. So they have a lot of ranged damage to be able to threaten these Phoenixes. And then they have Dardes, who at this point, who's going to be able to match Dardes in the side lane? Who can 1v1 Dardes? I don't think anybody on the Ravens team can.
Dardes now has a Spear of the Magus finished up for himself, has hit level 20, and has the golden hand for his starter item. Goes back and picks that one up. It looked like it's going to be an alternate timeline. Recent buff that came that item's way. I believe, what now, 40% of your health you get back on the respawn from it. Still a hefty cooldown for it, but gives him that second win, that second chance at a team fight. Should he go down maybe a little too early.
Second chance on these team fights, and in a lot of these fights, he's going to be able to win those 1v1s. But it's when those 2v1s come through. That second life might be the difference in just killing one and dying, or killing both and living.
Pyromancer for the Jade Dragons. Still have a little over 2 minutes to play with their Fire Giant buff. All tier 2 towers still standing. Lasbra not with the team just yet, as the Dragons push towards tier 2. Gonna absolutely melt that tower. No contest or defense from the Ravens, who are a bit split up right now. Their 2 side laners are still backing. Hurrywin goes in with the ultimate. It's gonna hit a couple of them, but with a Runic Bomb, it's a free Phoenix and nearly a kill into Hurrywin as well. He's down to just barely over 100 health himself. The Jade Dragons just walked up mid and took everything.
And Ravens opting to give nearly everything at this point. It's now about a 10,000 gold lead when after that fire, it was only 5,000, and Zap pushing up left. Laz is beating him here, and he just dashes in front of him.
Gets the pin. Lasbra can still keep the chase up once his dash comes back, but use a lot of it. Zapman just trying to find a way back to base. Scream is there, help with the bailout, but the Dragons, the rest of the team, are working up left side of the map. Titan goes down. It's Mike, Coast, and Nika dealing with the tier 2 as their Titan starts to push forward. Jade Dragons just keep up their grouping on left and force the Ravens for yet another defensive play.
About a minute left on this fire. Left Titan pushing up. Middle getting pushed down with these fire minions, and Laz trying to opt to push up that wave right now. Maybe didn't have a great early portion, mid portion of the game, but he's starting to become online. He's starting to get his items, the Rune Forge Protector. He's able to push out this mid wave. And little odd grouping in my opinion. I think Dardas needs to get out of left lane and head middle. This should be a 3-2 split, and then even somebody pushing down right lane, get that right wave pushed up. But this threat on the left, I guess maybe you could take the all-in fight around Titan, but it's still going to be very risky.
Titan is starting to group up. Laz on the one who went against Scream. 40% health left for Scream. He's going to have to go back to base. We want to be a full group of the Dragons on the left.
He's diving Titan?
Lasbro will just go for the Titan instead while the rest of the team starts working on the Phoenix and the fight. They're Titan down to about quarter HP. Phoenix still alive through all of it. Lasbro not going to collapse in. The Jade Dragons unable to get the left side Phoenix.
And Ankh was used in that fight. Dragons disengage even though they have that Titan, but now they're able to heal up a little bit. Left going to be pushing in, and Laz collapsing behind.
Walks in, finds 1-1 against Scream, goes in with the taunt to the ultimate. Big ult from Mike, on a Kraken, follow-up from Nika. Let's start us get one, not just one, make it two for him and one for Laz. 4 dead in the blink of an eye from the Jade Dragons, and it's only Haddix left to defend. No ultimate on the chalk, Dardas low, but Haddix can't stop all of the damage coming from the Dragons. It's Jade Dragons coming out on top in game number 1.
And a pretty confident middle portion of that game by the Dragons. They get that Fire Giant. They're able to just take and push down everything. And I think a lot of it comes back down to the dual lane for the Ravens. Just not very effective in these fights. Zapman, yes, does hit 20, but in those fights, if you think about who does more between Coast and Zap, it is all Coast. In support, is it Mike or is it Hurry? It's all Mike, and I think that's what I want to highlight. This is just a duo diff game.
I think that's the important part to also go back and highlight, because when we watch the